He never imagined his life would take such a turn. Driving the same route every day, seeing the same faces, it all felt routine, until she stepped onto his bus. At first, she was just another passenger, a schoolgirl barely on the cusp of adulthood. But something about her presence lingered. Maybe it was the way she always chose the seat closest to him, or how her eyes held an unspoken challenge. She was different, confident, playful. While most passengers ignored him, she acknowledged him, flashing a smile that made him feel seen. Home, he was invisible. His wife, once affectionate, had become a stranger. Conversations were reduced to bills, chores, and exhaustion. But this girl. She looked at him like he mattered. Their small talk started innocently. She asked about his day, teased him about his music taste. He told himself it was nothing, just friendliness. But then came the lingering gazes, the way she'd tilt her head and laugh just a little too long. He knew better, yet he didn't pull away. He found himself waiting for her each morning, his heart lifting when she appeared. He started to care, to notice things he shouldn't. The scent of her shampoo, the way she chewed her lip when thinking. One evening, as the bus emptied out, she stayed. She didn't have to, yet she lingered, pretending to scroll through her phone. Then casually she said, "You always seem lost in thought. What do you think about?" He hesitated, then answered honestly, "Things I probably shouldn't." She smirked, as if daring him to say more. That was the moment everything changed. The next few weeks blurred. Their conversations grew deeper. He learned about her strict parents, her need for freedom. She made him laugh in a way he hadn't in years. He told her things he never shared with his wife. How tired he felt, how he missed being someone's priority. She listened, and it felt good. Oh, good. It wasn't just talk anymore. It was stolen glances, accidental touches that neither pulled away from. One evening, she convinced him to grab coffee after his shift. Sitting across from her in the dim cafe, he felt the weight of his actions pressing down. Yet he didn't leave. She stirred her drink lazily, watching him. "You ever think about running away from it all?" she asked. He chuckled, shaking his head. "I have responsibilities." "Responsibilities," she echoed, rolling her eyes. "Sounds like an excuse." He should have walked away. Instead, he stayed, drawn into something reckless and dangerous. The air between them was charged, and when she reached across the table, resting her fingers lightly on his wrist, he didn't move. That night, he lay beside his sleeping wife, staring at the ceiling. Guilt gnawed at him, but so did something else, an unbearable longing. It happened fast, too fast. One evening, she missed her stop on purpose, waiting until they were alone. He parked in a secluded lot, turning to face her. "You shouldn't play games like this," he murmured, voice unsteady. "Who said I'm playing?" she whispered back. She leaned in first, but he didn't stop her. Their lips met in a rush of heat and desperation. His hands trembled as they tangled in her hair. Years of restraint crumbled in seconds. The kiss was reckless, messy, everything he shouldn't want, but did. There was no turning back now. What started as a fleeting attraction spiraled into stolen moments, hushed conversations, secret meetings. He justified it, telling himself he deserved happiness, even if it came at a cost. His wife barely noticed his absences. Or maybe she did but chose to ignore them. But secrecy has limits. One night, parked outside her apartment, a friend of his wife spotted them. The next morning his world collapsed. She found out. Course she did. Secrets like these don't stay hidden forever. The confrontation was brutal. Tears, accusations, the weight of betrayal crushing him. He had no defense. He had destroyed the trust that once held his marriage together. His wife didn't scream. That made it worse. She just looked at him, eyes hollow, voice quiet. "Was it worth it?" she asked. He had no answer. The fallout was swift. His job was gone. Someone had reported him. Whether it was a concerned passenger or a jealous colleague, he never knew. He became the whisper of the town, the disgraced man who threw his life away for a fleeting thrill. And her. She moved on, found another game to play. He was just a passing moment in her life, a story she might tell one day with a smirk. He was left alone, drowning in regret, realizing too late that infidelity doesn't just break hearts, it ruins lives. He told himself it was harmless, just conversation, just a little attention from someone who actually seemed interested in him. But deep down he knew better. It wasn't just small talk anymore. It was the way she leaned in when she spoke, how her laughter lingered in his head long after he dropped her off. It was the way she looked at him like he was someone worth paying attention to. His wife hadn't looked at him like that in years. Their conversations had turned into reminders. Pick up groceries, pay the bills, fix the leaking faucet. Even when they were in the same room, they felt miles apart. But this girl, this passenger who had no real place in his life, made him feel like a man again. He started waiting for her, scanning the bus mirror for her reflection, feeling that rush of anticipation when she appeared. She began riding a little longer, staying a few extra stops just to talk. "You don't mind, do you?" she'd ask, her tone playful, her smile teasing. And he never did. One day she showed up late, breathless, her hair messy from the wind. She dropped into her usual seat, sighing dramatically. "Rough day?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "You have no idea," she groaned. "Sometimes I just want to disappear for a while, you know? Just run away from everything." He knew the feeling too well. "Yeah," he admitted, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. "I know." She studied him, her gaze sharp and knowing. "Do you?" There was something dangerous in the way she said it. Something that made his heart race. That evening, she convinced him to have coffee with her. He should have said no. He should have gone home to his wife. Instead, he found himself sitting across from her in a dimly lit cafe, listening to her talk about her dreams, her frustrations, her longing for something more. "You ever feel trapped?" she asked suddenly. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Every day." She smiled, slow and knowing. "Then why don't you do something about it?" He laughed, shaking his head. "It's not that simple. Maybe you just make it complicated," she said, tilting her head. He should have walked away then. Paid for the coffee, said goodnight, and gone back to the life he was supposed to live. But he didn't. Because for the first time in years he felt seen. And that was all it took. He told himself it was just one mistake. A moment of weakness, nothing more. But mistakes have a way of multiplying, and soon it wasn't just one moment. It was every stolen glance, every whispered conversation, every excuse to be near her. She made it easy. She wasn't nervous or hesitant like he expected. She knew what she was doing. She liked the power, the thrill of it. And he let her have it. He let her take control because it was easier than facing the reality of what he was doing. First, they were careful. They kept their meetings short, their touches brief. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. They started taking risks. Late-night drives, secret places where no one would see them. He told himself it was still under control, that no one suspected anything. But deep down he knew he was lying. His wife started asking questions. "You've been working late a lot," she said one night, her voice light but her eyes sharp. "Yeah, short-staffed," he replied too quickly, already looking away. She didn't push, but the doubt lingered. He could feel it in the silence between them, in the way she watched him when she thought he wasn't looking. And then there was the girl. She was getting bolder. She stopped pretending it was just fun. "Why do you go home to her?" she asked one night, her fingers tracing circles on his arm. He didn't answer because he didn't have one. The guilt was there, always waiting in the quiet moments. But so was the rush, the need, the desperate hunger for something more. He knew it couldn't last. Affairs like this never did. But knowing it and stopping it were two different things. And then one night someone saw them. Just a glimpse. Passing moment. But it was enough. Enough to set everything in motion. Enough to start the unraveling. It didn't take long for everything to fall apart. Whispers spread fast, and soon, his wife wasn't just asking questions. She was demanding answers. She had seen the way he had changed, the distance, the late nights, the excuses that never quite added up. And now she had proof. She didn't scream when she confronted him. She didn't throw things or break down in tears like he had imagined. Instead, she just looked at him, her voice steady but hollow. How long? He couldn't lie anymore. He mumbled something about mistakes, about how it hadn't meant to happen. But that only made it worse. It didn't mean anything, she repeated, her laugh sharp and bitter. That makes it better. There was no coming back from this. He knew it before she even said the words. She packed a bag that night. Told him she'd call a lawyer in the morning. The silence she left behind was unbearable. And then, as if losing his family wasn't enough, the fallout spread further. Someone had reported him. Maybe a passenger, maybe a colleague, he never found out. The call came from his supervisor. A polite but firm conversation about conduct, complaints, company policy. He was out of a job by the end of the week. She didn't reach out to him after that. She moved on like it had all been just a fleeting thrill. Maybe to her it was. But for him it was everything. He had lost his wife, his home, his career, his reputation. All for something that had never been real. Regret came too late. He spent nights staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake, every warning sign he had ignored. He had told himself he deserved to be happy. But all he had now was emptiness. Infidelity never ends well. He had learned that the hard way.